The ancient hall of the Galactic Coalition was quiet, too quiet. The massive chamber could hold thousands of beings from across the stars, but today only a few hundred attended. Most of the younger species had stopped coming to these old meetings. They thought the ancient ones were boring. They thought the elders talked too much about the past. Elder Kratos stood at the center platform. His species was one of the oldest in the known galaxy. The Voskor had seen empires rise and fall like waves on a shore. They had watched countless civilizations bloom and fade. They knew things that others had forgotten. Today, the elder had important news. His long fingers moved across the holographic controls. Images appeared in the air above the platform. A small blue and green planet floated in the darkness of space. "We have found a new species," the elder said. His voice was calm but serious. "They call their world Earth. They call themselves humans." A few delegates looked up with mild interest. New species were discovered all the time. What made these humans special? The elder continued. He showed more images. Cities, machines, battles. The images showed humans fighting, always fighting. They fought with swords. They fought with guns. They fought with massive bombs that could destroy entire cities. And they were fighting each other. "These beings are dangerous," the elder warned. "Not because they are strong, not because they are smart, but because they never stop." Ambassador Gentar from the hegemony laughed. It was a harsh clicking sound. The Gentar were warriors. Their empire controlled 10,000 worlds. They had crushed 100 species who dared to resist them. "Elder, with respect, I see nothing to fear," Gentar said. "These humans fight with primitive weapons. They have not even left their moon. They waste their energy fighting among themselves. They are weak." Other delegates nodded. They agreed with Gentar. Some even smiled at the old elder. They thought he was being foolish. Scared of nothing, the elder showed more images. He showed human history. Ice ages that should have killed them, but humans survived. Diseases that should have wiped them out, but humans endured. Disasters, famines, wars. Through everything, humans kept going. "Look closely," the elder said. "These humans evolved on what they call a death world. Their planet has predators that can kill them easily. Their weather can freeze them or burn them. Their ground shakes and destroys their cities. Yet they survive. More than survive. They thrive." He showed footage of human soldiers in their wars. Humans fighting when they were outnumbered. Fighting when they were injured. Fighting when any other species would have surrendered. And sometimes, incredibly, winning. "They are persistence hunters," the elder explained. "Do you know what this means? On Earth there are animals faster than humans, stronger than humans, but humans hunted them by never giving up. They chased their prey for days. Days, until the prey died from exhaustion. This is what humans are. They are the species that never stops chasing." Gentar stood up. His armored body gleamed under the lights. "Elder Kratos, you speak of primitive hunters. We are a galactic empire. We have weapons that can crack planets. We have ships that cross the galaxy in days. What can these humans do against us? Nothing. They are not even worth our attention." The other delegates agreed. They were bored now. They wanted to discuss trade routes and mining rights. Not listen to warnings about some primitive species on the edge of explored space. The elder looked around the chamber. He saw the dismissal in their eyes. He had lived for 600 cycles. He had seen this before. Species who thought they were invincible. Species who ignored warnings. Most of them were now just dust in the stellar wind. "Very well," the elder said quietly. "I have given my warning. I have shown you what I have seen. The Voskor will have no part in what comes next. We will withdraw to our home systems. We will close our borders." This caused some surprise. The Voskor had been part of the coalition for thousands of years. They had never withdrawn before. "Why do you hide, old one?" Gentar asked mockingly. "Are you afraid of the hairless apes?" The elder looked at Gentar with ancient eyes. "I am not afraid of the humans themselves. I am afraid of what will happen when someone decides to test them. When someone decides these humans need to be conquered, or enslaved, or destroyed." He paused, and his next words were heavy with meaning. "Because humans have a saying. They say, 'Do not mistake kindness for weakness.' And another one, 'The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing.' These humans will not do nothing. Not when threatened, not when attacked. They will respond. And they will not stop responding until they win, or until they are extinct. There is no middle ground with them." The elder gathered his data and prepared to leave. At the entrance to the chamber, he turned back one last time. "When the humans come to the stars, remember this day. Remember that you were warned. The humans are not invincible, but they are unstoppable. Learn the difference. It may save your species." The elder left. The chamber was silent for a moment. Then Gentar laughed again. "The old one has gone soft, afraid of primitives. How far the mighty have fallen." The other delegates joined in the laughter. They returned to their discussions of trade and territory. The warning was forgotten. The images of Earth were deleted from the official records. After all, why keep data about an insignificant species that posed no threat? 50 years passed. The galaxy turned. Empires grew. Wars were fought and won. And on a small blue planet on the edge of explored space, humans looked up at the stars and dreamed of going there. They built ships. They developed new engines. They trained crews. And eventually, they left their home. They went seeking new worlds, new knowledge, new friends among the stars. They went in peace. But they were ready for anything, because humans always were. 3 weeks had passed since the destruction of the Endeavor. Admiral Zarthok's Fourth Fleet had moved deeper into what the Dominion believed was empty space. Their mission was simple: find the human homeworld and bring these primitives under Dominion control. What they found instead changed everything. The fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of a star system. Sensors immediately detected signs of habitation. A rocky planet orbited close to a yellow sun. Space stations hung in orbit. Small ships moved between the planet and several moons. "A human colony," Zarthok said with satisfaction. "Not their main world, but it will serve as a starting point. Prepare for planetary assault." Before his fleet could move forward, something unexpected happened. Ships began launching from the planet. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. They were not military vessels. These were cargo haulers, mining ships, passenger transports, and construction craft. Anything that could fly was rising to meet the Dominion fleet. The tactical officer studied the readings. "Sir, these vessels are not warships. They appear to be civilian craft that have been hastily armed." Zarthok laughed. "The fools are sending their cargo ships against us? This will be a massacre. All ships weapons free. Destroy anything that comes within range." The battle began. The Dominion warships opened fire with devastating efficiency. Plasma beams and missiles tore through the civilian fleet. Ships exploded left and right. Debris filled the space between the planet and the Dominion position. But the humans did not run. They did not surrender. Instead, they attacked with a fury that shocked the Dominion forces. A massive cargo hauler, its hull already burning, accelerated directly toward a Dominion cruiser. The cruiser tried to evade, but the freighter was too close. The two ships collided in a tremendous explosion. Both were destroyed. Mining ships designed to cut through asteroids focused their industrial lasers on Dominion destroyers. The beams were not military grade, but they were powerful enough to slice through armor if given enough time. Several destroyers found themselves with their engines disabled, floating helplessly. Passenger transports, filled with colonists who refused to evacuate, launched escape pods not away from the battle but toward Dominion ships. Each pod was packed with improvised explosives. When they struck enemy vessels, the explosions were small, but dozens of impacts added up. "What madness is this?" Zarthok demanded. "Why do they not retreat?" The communications officer had intercepted human transmissions. Her voice was shaken as she translated. "Sir, they are saying, remember the Endeavor. Make them pay for every kilometer. Buy time for the others." "Others?" Zarthok repeated. "What others?" His answer came when a human construction ship, normally used to build space stations, deployed a net of metal cables around a Dominion battleship. The cables tangled in the ship's maneuvering thrusters. As the battleship tried to break free, The construction ship detonated its entire fuel supply. The explosion was massive, crippling the battleship. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Dominion Fourth Fleet had superior weapons, better armor, and more ships. But the humans fought with desperate creativity. They used debris fields as cover. They coordinated attacks in ways that seemed impossible for civilian crews. They refused to surrender even when their ships were crippled and burning. By the time the last human ship was destroyed, Zarthok's fleet had lost 60 warships. 60. Against a force of civilians in converted cargo vessels. The admiral stood on his bridge, staring at the casualty reports in disbelief. In 200 years of command, he had never lost so many ships in a single engagement. And against what? Farmers and miners who turned their tools into weapons? Sir, the tactical officer said quietly, we are detecting more human colonies. They appear to be evacuating. Ships are leaving their systems and heading away from us, cowards, Zarthok spat. They run while their fellows die. I do not think they are running, sir. I think they are buying time. The colonists we just fought knew they could not win, but they fought anyway. They delayed us, and now the other colonies are using that time to prepare. Zarthok turned to face his officer. Prepare for what? We have just proven that even armed civilians cannot stand against us. The officer did not answer. He was listening to another intercepted transmission. Finally, he looked up at the admiral with fear in his eyes. Sir, we just received this message. It was broadcast from the colony we just destroyed, sent as the last ship fell. It says you wanted a war? You just picked a fight with Earth's kids. Wait until our parents come home. Zarthok felt a cold sensation in his stomach. Parents? What did that mean? Were these colonies not the human military? Were they not even defended by soldiers? For the first time in his long career, Admiral Zarthok wondered if he had made a mistake, but pride would not let him admit it. He had come too far. The Dominion had never backed down from a primitive species, and they would not start now. Continue the advance, he ordered. Find more colonies. Crush them. We will show these humans that the Dominion cannot be stopped by suicide tactics and desperate bravery. Over the next 2 months, the Fourth Fleet pushed deeper into human colonial space. They found more colonies. Each one fought with the same desperate ferocity. Civilians armed with whatever they could find. Old mining equipment turned into weapons. Cargo ships used as battering rams. Every single colony fought to the death. The Dominion won every battle. But the victories came at a terrible cost. The Fourth Fleet, which had started with 10,000 ships, was down to 8,000. 2,000 warships destroyed by farmers, miners, and merchants. Zarthok sent regular reports back to the Dominion Council. He assured them that resistance was breaking. He claimed the humans were running out of colonies to defend. He insisted that final victory was near. But privately, on the quiet of his command deck late at night, Zarthok studied the tactical data and felt doubt growing in his heart. These were not soldiers he was fighting. These were colonists. And if colonists could do this much damage, what would happen when the real human military arrived? That question would be answered soon enough. The Fourth Fleet arrived at the Proxima system, humanity's second-largest settlement. Long-range sensors showed a thriving colony, orbital stations, mining operations on 3 moons, and thousands of civilian ships moving through the system. Admiral Zarthok expected another desperate civilian defense. What he found waiting for him was different. A single ship hung in space between the colony and the approaching Dominion fleet. It was larger than the civilian vessels they had fought before, but still small compared to a Dominion battleship. The hull was painted dark blue with white markings. On its side, large letters spelled out, USC Valkyrie. One ship? Zarthok said incredulously. They send one ship to defend an entire colony? Sir, the ship is broadcasting on all channels. They are requesting communication. Let them speak. I want to hear what excuse they offer before we destroy them. The screen flickered to life. A human woman appeared wearing a crisp blue uniform. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were hard. Behind her, the bridge of her ship was visible. It looked professional, organized, nothing like the makeshift command centers of the civilian vessels. I am Commander Patricia O'Neill of the United Earth System, Colonial Security Force. I speak on behalf of the government of Earth and her colonies. Zarthok waved a dismissive claw. Another human come to die uselessly. Your colonies have been interesting target practice, but this charade ends now. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Commander O'Neill's expression did not change. Admiral Zarthok, you have attacked our exploration vessel without provocation. You have murdered our civilians. You have destroyed 12 colonies. These are acts of war and crimes against sapient beings. You have 3 hours to withdraw your fleet beyond our agreed border and surrender yourself and your command staff for War Crimes Tribunal. This is your only warning. Silence fell across the bridge. Several officers looked at each other in shock. This human, alone in a single ship facing 10,000 warships, was demanding their surrender. Zarthok's laugh echoed through the command deck. You are insane. I have 8,000 warships. You have one. What makes you think you can threaten me? I am not threatening you, Admiral. I am warning you. There is a difference. You attacked civilians. You murdered explorers. You ignored every opportunity for peace. You forced this war. But even now at this late hour, Earth offers you mercy. Withdraw. Surrender. Face justice. If you refuse, what happens next is on your hands. And what exactly will happen? Zarthok asked mockingly. Will your one ship destroy my fleet? O'Neill leaned forward slightly. Admiral, you have been fighting colonists, farmers, miners, merchants, brave people, yes, but civilians nonetheless. I am Earth System Colonial Security. We are not the military, Admiral. We are the police. And you just ignored an officer of the law. The real army hasn't even arrived yet. Zarthok had heard enough. Police? This arrogant human thought her people had police in space? It was absurd. He would show her the price of defiance, weapons free. All ships target that destroyer. Turn it into dust. The Valkyrie moved before the first shots were fired. Its engines flared bright blue and the ship accelerated with speed that shocked the Dominion sensors. It was fast. Impossibly fast for a ship of its size. Weapons fire filled space. Hundreds of plasma beams and missiles streaked toward the small human ship. The Valkyrie twisted and turned, evading with precision that seemed almost impossible. Its point defense systems shot down missiles with perfect accuracy. When plasma beams came too close, shimmering energy barriers appeared around the ship, deflecting the worst of the impacts. Then the Valkyrie returned fire. Magnetic rails along its hull glowed white-hot. Solid metal projectiles, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, tore through space. The first shot struck a Dominion cruiser directly in its command section. The kinetic impact was devastating. The cruiser broke in half, its reactor exploding seconds later. The Valkyrie did not slow down. It dove into the Dominion formation like a predator among prey. Its railguns fired with mechanical precision. Every shot found a target. Every target was destroyed or crippled. The Dominion fleet tried to respond, but the human ship was too fast, too agile. It moved through their formations, destroying ships with surgical efficiency. Cruisers exploded. Destroyers lost power. Even a battleship found itself crippled when the Valkyrie targeted its engine core. How is one ship doing this? Someone on the bridge whispered. Zarthok had no answer. He watched as his fleet struggled to even hit the human vessel, while it systematically destroyed his ships one after another. This was not a desperate civilian defense. This was professional military action. Precise, efficient, deadly. The battle lasted 2 hours. By the end, 40 Dominion ships were destroyed or disabled. The Valkyrie's shields were failing. Its armor was breached in several places, and its weapons were running low on ammunition. But it had fought 8,000 ships, alone, and made them bleed. Finally, overwhelmed by sheer numbers, the Valkyrie's shields collapsed. A missile struck its engine section. Another hit the command deck. The ship began to break apart. Commander O'Neill's face appeared on the screen one last time. Blood ran down her forehead and sparks flew from damaged systems behind her. You had your chance, Admiral, she said quietly. We offered you peace. We offered you mercy. You chose war. Remember that when they arrive. The real army hasn't even arrived yet. The transmission cut off. The Valkyrie exploded in a ball of white fire. Zarthok sat in his command chair staring at the debris field. 40 ships. One human destroyer, outgunned 8,000 to 1, had destroyed 40 of his vessels before falling, and it was just the police. Not even the military. The tactical officer's voice was shaken.
Sir, we are detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the system.
Multiple wormholes opening. How many? Zarthok asked. The officer checked his readings twice before answering. Sir, I count 300 wormhole signatures. No, 400. Still increasing. Zarthok stood slowly. He walked to the main viewing screen and watched as hundreds of tiers in spacetime appeared at the system's edge. And through each one, warships began to emerge. Real warships, massive battle carriers, destroyer squadrons, fighter wings that numbered in the thousands. The real army had arrived. The Earth Defense Navy emerged from their wormholes in perfect formation. 5 battle groups, each centered around a massive carrier. Destroyer screens fanned out in protective patterns. Fighter wings launched and formed up in tight squadrons. Everything moved with precision that spoke of years of training and discipline. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Zarthok watched the human fleet take up positions. His tactical displays showed the numbers clearly. The humans had brought about 800 warships to face his 8,000. The Dominion still had a 10-to-1 advantage in numbers, but the memory of the Valkyrie, one ship against thousands, made him hesitate. A communication request came from the human fleet. Zarthok accepted it. A human male appeared on screen. He was older than the other humans Zarthok had seen, with gray hair and hard eyes. His uniform was more elaborate, covered in symbols of rank and achievement. Behind him, the command bridge was larger, more sophisticated, filled with officers working at their stations. "I am Fleet Admiral James Harding, Supreme Commander of the Earth Defense Navy. You are Admiral Zarthok, correct?" "I am," Zarthok replied, trying to sound confident. "And you are making a mistake, Admiral. You are outnumbered 10-to-1. Surrender now and I will be merciful." Harding's expression did not change. "Admiral Zarthok, you are under arrest for war crimes. The charges include the murder of unarmed explorers, the destruction of civilian colonies, and refusing lawful surrender demands. You and your command staff will stand trial before an international tribunal. Your ships and crew will be detained as prisoners of war. These are my terms. You have 10 minutes to comply." Zarthok's anger flared. "You speak of crimes? You speak of law? I am the law here. The Dominion is the supreme power in this galaxy. We have conquered 1,000 species. What makes you think you can dictate terms to me?" "Because you killed our people," Harding said quietly. "You murdered Captain Chen and her crew. They were peaceful explorers. You murdered colonists, farmers, children. You destroyed the Valkyrie after Commander O'Neill gave you every chance to surrender. You have committed acts that violate every principle of civilized warfare, and now you will answer for those crimes." "I will answer to no one," Zarthok roared. "I have 8,000 ships. Your fleet will be crushed." Harding sighed. "So be it. You have chosen your path. May whatever gods you worship have mercy on you, because we will not. All ships weapons free. Show them what happens when you murder our families." The battle began with a coordinated strike that left Zarthok's tactical officers gasping. Every human ship fired at precisely the same moment. Their targeting was perfect. Railgun rounds, missiles, and energy beams all converged on selected Dominion vessels. 20 Dominion ships exploded in the first volley. 20 more lost power. The human fleet did not pause. They moved forward, their formation shifting and flowing like a living thing. Fighter wings swept through Dominion formations, destroying smaller vessels and disabling larger ones. The Dominion fleet tried to respond with overwhelming firepower. Thousands of weapons fired at once, filling space with deadly energy. But the human ships had shields unlike anything the Dominion had seen. Kinetic barriers deflected solid rounds. Energy screens absorbed plasma fire. And when a shield failed, the ship's armor was thick enough to take multiple hits. What terrified Zarthok most was the coordination. Every human ship knew where every other ship was. They never fired on each other. They never blocked each other's shots. Their movements were synchronized with mathematical precision. "They are using artificial intelligence," his tactical officer reported. "Some kind of coordinated targeting system. Every ship shares data instantly. They know where we are before we move." Zarthok watched as his fleet, larger and more numerous, was slowly torn apart by the smaller but vastly superior human force. The humans used tactics he had never seen. They would concentrate fire on a single ship, destroy it completely, then move to the next target before his forces could respond. When Dominion ships tried to close to boarding range, human destroyers would appear from unexpected angles, cutting off the attack. When the Dominion tried to spread out, human carriers would launch fighter waves that picked off isolated vessels. The battle lasted 6 hours. By the end, 3,000 Dominion ships were destroyed or crippled. The human fleet had lost 80 vessels. Zarthok sat in his command chair staring at the casualty reports. 3,000 ships. Nearly 40% of his fleet, gone, against a force 1/10 his size. A communication came from Admiral Harding. "Admiral Zarthok, your fleet is broken. You have lost this battle. Surrender now and no more of your people need to die." Zarthok looked around his bridge. His officers were exhausted, shocked, defeated. He had never retreated in 200 years of command. He had never surrendered, but he had also never faced an enemy like this. "No," he said quietly, "I will not surrender." All remaining ships jumped to faster than light travel. "We retreat to Dominion space." The human fleet did not pursue. They let the Dominion survivors escape. As Zarthok's flagship jumped away, he took one last look at the battlefield. Thousands of his ships floated as dead hulks, and the human fleet sat there barely damaged, like hunters watching wounded prey flee. In his final moments before the jump, Zarthok heard Admiral Harding's last transmission. "Run back to your masters, Admiral. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity gave you every chance for peace. And tell them that if the Dominion ever threatens our people again, we will not stop at your frontier. We will bring this war to your homeworlds. We will show you what happens when you push a patient people too far." The jump drive engaged. The stars blurred and shifted. Admiral Zarthok fled back to Dominion space, carrying news of a defeat so complete, so devastating, that it would shake the Empire to its core. Behind him, the Earth Defense Navy remained in the Proxima system. They began recovery operations, searching for survivors from both sides. They treated Dominion prisoners with the same medical care they gave their own wounded. They followed rules of war that the Dominion had never heard of, and they waited. Because they knew the Dominion would not accept this defeat. They knew a larger force would come, and when it did, humanity would be ready. The war had only just begun. The Dominion Council chamber was in chaos. Empress Zaldara sat on her throne, ancient and terrible, while council members shouted at each other across the vast hall. The report from Admiral Zarthok had shocked them all. 3,000 ships lost, destroyed by a primitive species from a single star system. It was impossible. It had to be a lie, an exaggeration. But the data logs did not lie. The tactical recordings showed everything. Ambassador Kelton stood before the council, his voice calm despite the turmoil around him. "I warned you. I told you we knew nothing about these humans. We should have investigated before we attacked." A military commander slammed his fist on the table. "It was a fluke. They caught us by surprise. Next time we will be ready." "It was not a fluke," Kelton said quietly. "It was superior technology, superior tactics, and superior training. The humans fought with precision we have never seen. They coordinated their entire fleet as if it were a single organism." Empress Zaldara raised a hand and silence fell. "Ambassador Kelton, you have studied these humans. What do we know about them?" Kelton activated a holographic display. Images of Earth appeared, rotating slowly. "This is their homeworld. It is what we call a death world." Murmurs ran through the council. Death worlds were rare. Planets where life was so dangerous, so competitive, that the species that emerged were invariably strong and aggressive. Earth has gravity 1.2 times the galactic standard. Its weather includes storms that can destroy cities. The planet has experienced 5 major extinction events.
And yet life persisted.
Humans evolved as apex predators on a world that was constantly trying to kill them. The display shifted to show images from human history. Battles, wars, weapons of terrible power. But the worst part is not the planet. The worst part is what humans did to themselves. For thousands of years they fought each other, nation against nation, tribe against tribe. They invented weapons capable of destroying their entire planet. They came within moments of wiping out their own species multiple times. Then why are they still alive? Someone asked. Because they learned, Kelton said. They stopped fighting each other. They united. They took all that experience from thousands of years of warfare and turned it into military doctrine. Every tactic they used against us was developed fighting themselves. They know war better than any species in the galaxy because they have been at war for their entire existence. The council sat in stunned silence. Finally, the military commander spoke. Then we send everything. We deploy the 2nd, 5th, and 7th fleets, 30,000 ships. We crush them with overwhelming force. Empress Zaldara nodded slowly. Do it. But Ambassador Kelton, you will continue your research. I want to know everything about these humans. How they think. How they fight. What they fear. Over the next 6 months, 3 Dominion fleets moved into human space. 30,000 warships, the largest force the Dominion had assembled in centuries, and they found that humanity had been preparing. Every human system was fortified. Orbital platforms bristled with weapons. Minefields surrounded key locations. Hidden facilities on asteroids and moons provided ambush points. The Earth Defense Navy had used the time since the first battle to turn their territory into a fortress. The battles were brutal. The Dominion won victories through sheer numbers, but each victory cost them dearly. For every human ship destroyed, they lost 10 of their own. The cost ratios were unsustainable. Ambassador Kelton continued his research, and what he found terrified him. He discovered that humans had concepts like war crimes and rules of engagement. They had actual laws about how to conduct warfare. They would not use certain weapons because they considered them too inhumane. They treated prisoners according to strict guidelines. The Dominion had none of these concepts. When they fought to exterminate. There were no rules, no mercy. Total warfare was the only kind they knew. But humans? They were holding back. Kelton found records of human weapons they were not using. Biological weapons that could sterilize entire planets. Nuclear weapons that could crack continents. Self-replicating machines that could consume all matter in a star system. And something called antimatter. Energy so powerful that a small amount could destroy a fleet. Humans had all of these weapons. They had used them on themselves in their ancient past. They had nearly destroyed their world with them. And now, facing an alien enemy, they were choosing not to use them. Kelton rushed to the council with his findings.
They are fighting with restraint.
They could exterminate us, but they are holding back. We must sue for peace immediately. The council dismissed him. Restraint is weakness, the military commander declared. They hold back because they fear us. We press the attack! But Kelton had also intercepted human communications. He had heard their soldiers talking. He had listened to their commanders. And he understood the truth. Humans were not holding back out of weakness. They were holding back because they had seen where total war led. They had nearly destroyed themselves with it. They remembered the horror of their own capacity for destruction. And they had chosen to be better. That restraint was not weakness. It was the most terrifying thing about them, because it meant they could unleash total war if they chose to. They simply preferred not to. The war continued for 6 months. The Dominion lost battle after battle. The Second Fleet was destroyed. The Fifth Fleet retreated with massive casualties. The Seventh Fleet barely escaped complete annihilation. In total, the Dominion had lost 60,000 ships. They had lost 14 star systems, and humanity had barely moved from defensive positions. They had not counterattacked. They had not invaded Dominion space. They had simply held their ground and made the Dominion pay for every light year. The Dominion Council convened an emergency session. The military commanders who had been so confident now sat in silence. Empress Zaldara looked older than her 1,000 years. Ambassador Kelton, she said quietly, what do you recommend? Kelton stood slowly. We must surrender immediately, unconditionally, before they decide that restraint is no longer an option. Surrender? A council member gasped. The Dominion has never surrendered. Then we will be the first, Kelton said. Because the alternative is extinction. Do you understand? We have been fighting their defensive forces. We have been fighting soldiers who are following rules of engagement. We have been facing an enemy who is trying not to kill us. What happens when we force them to stop trying? The council sat in silence, finally understanding the truth. They had picked a fight with a species that had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war, a species that had weapons capable of ending all life, a species that had chosen mercy over massacre. And that mercy could not last forever. The vote was unanimous. Ambassador Kelton was authorized to make contact with Earth and negotiate a surrender. As he left the council chamber to prepare his transmission, he could only hope that humanity would accept. Because if they refused, if they decided that the Dominion needed to be eliminated as a threat, nothing would stop them. The real question was not whether the Dominion could win. The question was whether humanity would let them survive. 1 year after the destruction of the UESS Endeavour, the sky above the Dominion capital world turned dark with ships. Not Dominion ships. Human ships. Thousands of them. The Terran Alliance Expeditionary Force had arrived. Empress Zaldara stood in the council chamber watching the displays in numb shock. She had thought the Earth Defense Navy was formidable. She had been wrong. That had just been humanity's home guard. The forces that stayed behind to protect their core worlds. This fleet was something else entirely. 400,000 warships, 50 billion soldiers, weapons platforms that made the Dominion's greatest vessels look like children's toys. And all of it had been hidden, scattered across deep space, exploring and colonizing systems the Dominion had never even detected. A communication request came through. Zaldara accepted it with trembling hands. Fleet Admiral James Harding appeared on the screen. Behind him stood other officers, their uniforms decorated with symbols of rank and achievement. The command bridge was vast, filled with hundreds of stations all working in perfect coordination. Empress Zaldara, I am Fleet Admiral James Harding of the Terran Alliance Expeditionary Force. We received Ambassador Keltan's request for peace negotiations. We have considered your offer. These are our terms. Harding's voice was calm but firm. First, the Galactic Dominion will acknowledge the sovereignty of all species. No more forced integration. No more conquest. Every species has the right to choose their own path. Second, the Dominion military will be reduced by 70%. Your remaining forces will be limited to defensive operations only. Humanity will monitor your compliance. Third, the Dominion will pay reparations to Earth for the lives lost and colonies destroyed. The amount will be determined by an independent tribunal. Fourth, Admiral Zarthok and his senior command staff will be tried for war crimes. They will receive a fair trial. They will have legal representation, but they will answer for their actions. Fifth, all species currently under Dominion rule will be given the choice to remain or seek independence. Humanity will support any species that chooses freedom. Zaldara listened to the terms, her ancient heart heavy. These were not the terms of extermination. They were not even particularly harsh, but they meant the end of the Dominion as it had existed for 12,000 years. And if we refuse? She asked quietly. Harding's expression grew grave. Then we will show you what we are truly capable of. Everything you have seen so far has been defensive warfare. We fought according to the rules of engagement. We used conventional weapons. We targeted military assets only. We treated your prisoners with respect. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. If you force us to continue this war, we will not hold back anymore. We will use weapons we have kept locked away for centuries. We will show you why humanity nearly destroyed itself. And when we are done, the Dominion will not exist. Not as an empire. Not as a species. Not even as a memory. Behind Harding, a tactical officer activated a display. Images appeared showing human weapons. Planet-killer missiles. Antimatter bombs. Biological weapons. Self-replicating war machines. And other things. Terrible things that the Dominion had no names for. We have these weapons, Harding said. We built them. We tested them. We know exactly what they can do because we use them on ourselves. And we swore never to use them again. But if you leave us no choice, if you force us to choose between our survival and our principles, we will choose survival. And you will learn why the most dangerous species in the galaxy is the one that knows how to destroy itself. The council chamber was silent. Every member understood the truth now. The Dominion had never faced an enemy like this. They had conquered primitive species. They had crushed rivals. They had built an empire on fear and force, but humanity was different. Humanity had conquered themselves first. They had fought through their own worst instincts and emerged as something new. A species that preferred peace but was prepared for war. A species that chose mercy but kept their weapons sharp. Empress Zaldara stood slowly. Admiral Harding, on behalf of the Galactic Dominion, I accept your terms unconditionally. Harding nodded. A wise decision, Empress. Ambassador Keltan will coordinate the details of the treaty. We will begin the trial proceedings for Admiral Zarthok within the month, and we will start the process of allowing subjugated species to choose their own destiny. 3 months later, the treaty was signed on a neutral space station. Representatives from hundreds of species attended. The Dominion, once the supreme power in the galaxy, was reduced to just another member state in a new alliance. At the ceremony, a Dominion counselor approached Admiral Harding. The counselor's expression was one of confusion and curiosity. Admiral, I must ask, why did you not destroy us? You clearly had the power. You could have wiped out the Dominion completely. Why show mercy? Harding looked out at the stars through the station's viewing port. Because we have seen where that path leads. For thousands of years, humanity fought itself. Nation against nation, ideology against ideology. We came within moments of extinction more times than I can count. He turned back to the counselor. We learned something from all that suffering. We learned that the strongest victory is not the one that destroys your enemy. It is the one that makes them your friend. We learned that the best way to ensure peace is not through fear but through respect. The counselor was quiet for a moment. You could have conquered us. Instead, you freed us. I do not understand. That is the difference between us, Harding said gently. The Dominion conquered others. Humanity conquered itself. We defeated our own worst impulses. We learned to choose cooperation over domination. And once you learn that lesson, truly learn it, you cannot go back. You can never again justify needless destruction. You can never again choose cruelty when kindness is possible. He smiled slightly. Besides, the galaxy is a dangerous place. There are threats out there we have not even discovered yet. Better to have friends than enemies when those threats arrive. Later that day, Ambassador Kelton gave a speech to the newly reformed Galactic Council. He spoke of the lessons learned from the war. He spoke of the mistakes the Dominion had made. And he spoke of the future. We thought we ruled the galaxy, he said. We thought our empire was supreme. Then we met a species that had already defeated the only enemy that ever mattered. They defeated themselves. They conquered their own capacity for destruction and emerged as something better. He looked around at the assembled representatives. We are lucky they are merciful. We are lucky they chose peace. Because make no mistake, if humanity had chosen differently, none of us would be here today. The galaxy learned an important lesson. Never mistake humanity's desire for peace as inability for war. Never assume that restraint means weakness. And never, ever forget that when humans fight, they do not just want to win. They want to make sure you never forget the lesson. 5 years after the treaty, the Terran Expeditionary Force had become the peacekeeping arm of the new Galactic Alliance. Human ships patrolled former Dominion space, protecting weaker species from aggression. Human technology was shared freely with allies. Human medicine saved billions of lives, and humanity continued to explore, to learn, to grow. But they kept their weapons sharp. They maintained their military readiness, because they understood something that the Dominion never had. Peace was not the absence of the ability to make war. Peace was the choice to not make war when you could, and that choice, made every day by every human, was what made them truly formidable. Admiral Harding retired to Earth, returning to the home world he had left decades ago. On his last day in uniform, a young officer asked him what he was most proud of in his long career. Harding thought for a long moment. I am proud that we won the war, but I am more proud of how we won. We could have exterminated the Dominion. We chose not to. We proved that humanity had finally learned to be better than our worst instincts. That is the real victory. Not conquering others, but conquering ourselves. The young officer nodded, understanding. And if they had not surrendered? If they had forced us to use those weapons? Harding's eyes grew distant. Then we would have. Because we protect our own. We chose mercy, but never mistake that for weakness. If pushed far enough, humanity will do what is necessary. We just prefer not to. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was not invincible, but they were patient, prepared, and principled. They would help those who asked. They would defend those who needed it. And they would destroy those who left them no choice. The real army had arrived. And the galaxy was better for it.